Everybody is slowly joining, so let's start our series of conversations, and thank you for joining. I'm really glad and very happy to have you here. And well, you started your journey together in 1964, or you started together 1963, but I think you did first competition in 64. Is that correct? Yes.
That's right.
And then you went into your decade, the next decade, into 70s. So just let's step a little bit back into history and tell me, like, what was very good then, and what did you like a lot about those decades? What do you remember, what you miss from those decades in dancing?
Will you go first, or shall I?
You can answer it first.
The biggest thing that I miss is the fact that man dances with woman. I mean, in those times, you know, everybody started dancing in a dancing school, and you went through the medal test system, and then eventually onto competitions. And obviously, through that system, you learn all the basic figures, you learn the technique, you're able to learn obviously the leading and how you put those basic figures together. So the one thing I think which is missing now is that men can't get hold of a lady and just dance without having a routine. They, you know, I could follow Mick, whatever he wanted to do. He could be imaginative and put the things together how he wanted to, and it would be no problem for me to follow. So the leading and the following was something that we grew up with. It was that was how we learned, and I think that's missing now. The men don't dance with the ladies. Everything is so a routine, and it's so calculated. And even when we competed, actually, we had not always, but sometimes little pieces in the routine where we would improvise. I never really, particularly in jive, I never had a routine in jive because he couldn't remember one. So we had these figures, and he used to jive and I jived with him. But I knew that, you know, if we were going into a Lincoln whip, I knew what was going to follow that for the next 6 or 8 bars. But I didn't really know if after the Lincoln whip, there was that group came that we were going to be doing another group. So it was a little bit of improvisation, and he led, I followed, and that's how it is. I think that's missing nowadays.
And also, sorry, go on, carry on.
No, I just said it's amazing on that, and I would like Michael to follow a little bit from the man's point of view, obviously, to trust your woman. That's, you know.
Well, the difference is today to when we were dancing, we never really danced to mirrors. My partner was my mirror and I was her mirror. So we watched one another. Today, the couples are dancing too much on their own, facing the mirrors and only dancing to the mirror. So when they get hold of their partner, they're looking at themselves in the mirror rather than looking at their partner. So it makes a big difference, doesn't it? You know, how they lead, how they shape. You know, today it is different because it's like dancing is like building a house. When in our days the houses were old with the timbers and everything, but the foundations were very strong. Today the houses are beautiful, very good designs and glass and grey and white, but unfortunately sometimes the foundations are not solid. That's why a lot of the houses are falling down, all the latest houses.
That's amazing example, actually, to think like this. But also it's amazing that you must have trust one unconditionally to go on the floor into competition, having no jive routine and just purely trust one another. It's beautiful.
Well, I don't think that was unusual. I think other couple, and in actual fact, I know that Sammy Stopford and Barbara McCall, I don't think Sammy ever had a routine either. He led, Barbara followed. So it wasn't unusual because, yeah, you did trust one another. I didn't ever have any fears that he would dry up and not know what to do. I don't know. And you didn't ever have any fear that I wouldn't follow you. It was just so normal.
But also that must well required so much skill. So your technique and your basic must have been in such a high level to in order to follow like this and to suddenly to switch into various figures.
Well, I think, well, that's how we learned. That's how it was taught, and how we were brought up to do it that way. So we didn't realise that it was anything out of the ordinary, really. I tell you a funny story. I'm going to tell the story about when you taught that Japanese couple.
Yeah.
We had this wasn't a competition, this was actually a demonstration, but he'd been teaching for about 3 or 4 days, the same Japanese couple, giving them some choreography. And they had a new samba routine, and they hadn't been the quickest of pupils to pick it up. And he'd done about 2 days on this routine. Anyway, we had a show on the Friday night, and our first dance was samba. So we started our samba routine on our show, and we got to about, I don't know, 32 bars into the samba, and instead of doing promenade runs, I found myself doing something else. So I kind of said under my breath, "What are you doing?" And he just said, "I don't know, just follow me." And so we did the rest of the samba in that show with me not knowing what was going to happen. And he was doing the routine he was giving this Japanese couple.
And also the difference in our days to today, we danced to live music.
Yeah,
we used to go to Hammersmith Party, the Locarno, and we had orchestras like Ken McIntosh, Ray McVeigh, Joe Loss, Denny Boyce, and Sid Lawrence. So every Tuesday at Hammersmith Ballet, there was an orchestra, and we always used to go and practice. Where today they only practice with CDs or on YouTubes or on whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't realise how lucky we were really to have live music to practice to every week.
No.
I mean, 3 times a week you could go to Hammersmith Palais or the Locarno and have live music. It was amazing, you know, whereas that's obviously changed.
Yeah. So just before we go to the next question, Lorraine from Sweden says, big laugh and hello.
Oh,
hi, Lorraine. Hi, nice to, well, I can't see you, but nice to know you're there.
Yes. So now, I believe for whatever reason, and I would like to know that reason, you have this very big stamp as in a bigger specialist of Paso Doble. In fact, I've been on a few trips with you, Michael, where you remember saying to me, oh dear, I did 10 Paso Dobles today non-stop. So how come did you have that stamp of Paso Doble?
Well, I've always used to enjoy the Paso Doble because I always used to watch bullfights.
Right.
I even when we went to Spain once, they asked some people to come in who wanted to have a go at the bull. And I said, I will do it. I'll put my hand up. And they picked me to go in the bull ring with a little bull, not so big, to use the cape and everything. And from that day, I thought to myself, you know, I like this. I could never be a bullfighter because we lived in England, not in Spain. But and I learnt the Paso Doble. The man who taught me a lot in the Paso Doble was John Delroy. Yeah. John Delroy for me was the master in Paso Doble, and then I learnt from him. And but our main teachers was Walter Laird and Lorraine. Lorraine was our main teacher with Wally Laird, and we danced against Wally Laird and Kaiser of Switzerland, Rudy Trouts, Opitz, Fischer, you know, Wesley. We can go on and on who we danced with.
One of our first competitions was Laird and Lorraine's last competition, yes. So it was kind of quite surreal. And we when we started, it was funny really, because when we started having lessons, we started first of all with Sydney Francis, and Wally and Lorraine used to come to Sydney Francis' studio on a Monday night and practice. And then we became teachers in Sydney's studio. And I don't know, we didn't get so many lessons as we wanted. So we said to Sydney, would you mind if we had lessons with Water, Lead and Rain? Because they were the current champion. It's just like somebody now saying they wanted lessons with Filippo or something, you know. So anyway, he said no, he didn't mind. He thought that would be good and that we would find some inspiration. And that was the best day of our lives when we actually walked in and had our first lessons with Lead and Rain. Because in that era, there was another teacher, Nina Hunt, who was very popular and everybody went there for lessons. And we didn't know anything about the politics or who we should go to or anything. And as I say, we just made that decision because Lead and Rain were the champion. They were there in the studio. So we went and had our lessons. And once we had enough lessons, we realized we had made the best decision of our lives, and that we could have so easily had ended up in that Nina Hunt studio looking like everybody else, you know. Yes. So well, we were very, very lucky with that.
Right.
But so, also tell them about when you did with Torvill and Dean, when you did their passo, because
yes, I did a lot of work with Torvill and Dean on the Paso Doble. He was fantastic skaters and he had some fantastic ideas what he did on the ice. But I helped him a lot with their movements, with their arms and their shaping. And he won the Olympics with that one, you know. So, you know, and that's how I became, say, a Paso Doble expert. I mean, for me, you know, I mean, I could name 5 of the top people that I trained in Paso Doble that have all been a different style, and they've all been fantastic in what they're doing today. And I mean, I can name them, and I will. Donnie Burns was one, Jukka Hapalainen, Paul Killick, Alan Tonsberg, what's his name? Alan Tonsberg.
It's a senior moment.
Yeah, that's a senior moment. Sukov, Sergei Sukov was another one. I mean, Michael Malakowski, Brian, they all had good Paso Dobles.
The thing is, I think we did a lot of research on the Paso Doble because it's a character dance. We did a lot of research on the character. And so it wasn't just about doing the right technique or the right figures. It was actually researching what the character, how to create the atmosphere and so forth. And I think that background is really what's made you so good at doing it. But
the atmosphere is very important in Paso Doble. The atmosphere, the stillness, the sharpness of the movement. It's not a hard dance. Because it originated in France. It wasn't really, Paso Doble wasn't originated in Spain. It came from France. It was a dance where they were holding very close together, and that's where you got the surplus from, and elevations and all the figures, you know.
So how do you feel the Paso Doble moved on now? Is it still what you expect from Paso Doble, from most of the couples, or is it something now a little bit?
No, I think there's been good Paso Doble dancers. Maurizio, Ricardo, Stefano Filippo, they're all good Paso Doble dancers. But I feel today they're running around the floor. They're not really, I'm not saying they've got to stay in one spot, but they're using the floor too much. They're running around. And the only time you run around in the Paso Doble is when the bull is chasing you.
Yes, and no bulls on our dance floor. So lucky for that. Right. Okay. So what would your little advice be for today's dancers, maybe towards Paso Doble or other dancers, in comparison to your decade, that perhaps something you're missing in this day? What would you bring back a little bit more?
Patience.
Patient.
Everybody wants to, you know, they want next week to be a round higher than they were last week, and they're not really kind of wanting to invest any time into waiting and studying deeply enough and waiting for tiny little improvements to happen. So I think the couples are very impatient. They want everything instantly now. And whereas we were, you know, I remember when we started having lessons with Michael and Lorraine, we spent 3 years working on the most tiniest little thing technically, not letting my ankle drop on a boat of Fogos, for instance, and, you know, training rumble walks and forward walks and spirals. We did 3 years of intense basic, having a lesson every single week of the year. And that's another thing. We had lessons with Laird and Lorraine every single week of the year, 52 weeks a year. We had a lesson with them. So in 3 years, we obviously were able to show quite an improvement. And that improvement didn't get acknowledged in a competition until about 3 years. But then once it was acknowledged, people, oh my goodness, you've improved a lot. Who are you going to for lessons? Because they thought it was instant. They didn't realize that we'd invested all that time. So I think, yeah, investment of time and patience, really.
Patience mainly.
And the regular lessons with the person you put your faith in.
Yeah.
I never once thought that any other competitor was getting more than we were. We were 100% satisfied with our lessons, more than 100% satisfied. I believed everything that we were being taught was for our own good and was the correct knowledge for us. So we had that faith in our teachers, whereas I think now they have too many teachers and they have lessons. They don't really put their faith in any one of those teachers, I think.
That's right. And there's no great teacher or great dancer. It's when the couple become, with the teacher, they become great together.
Right. That's
very important, I think.
Yes, I think it's the mutual trust of the team. But also, I mean, when you said like it took you 3 years to be acknowledged in the competition floor, I mean, it's a lot of patience, as you said, it took for that. But some couples, they don't even dance that long together. They dance for a couple of years, no result, and they split. So I think, and you've been together, well, for 60 years nearly. So and I think, do you think because of you spent so much time together, you became like a unit? So it was definitely Michael&Lorna unit rather than two people.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I was 16 and Michael was 19 when we started dancing together. But Michael hadn't. You started dancing at 18, didn't you? Yeah. So basically, at that particular time, we were babies and we were beginners, really. And we knew very little about anything. So everything we learned together. And I think that the fact that we stayed together and went through the whole of our competitive career together was the fact that we could learn that and begin to dance as one person. So although we weren't two individuals, although I do believe that I became an individual dancer because of the way that I practiced my motions and fundamentals. And the same with Michael, he was an individually good. But what happened was the two individuals came together and we became a good partnership. Yes. And in order to be a good partnership, you have to invest that time.
But sometimes I hear, I mean, when the couples split and perhaps they danced maybe 10 years already together and they split and you ask why, and they would say, well, you know, we've been for so long together, we kind of lost the flame together. So we need new, you know, sort of new inspiration. And yet you didn't lose that inspiration. You stayed together a long time. So how is that? How would you advise, or what would you advise to people not to give up again on that and find the flame and keep the partnership?
I think you do have to have things that give you inspiration along the way. even if it's going to the theatre, go to the musical theatres and watch other people performing. I mean, going back to, as Michael touched on very earlier, that we used to go to Hammersmith Palais on a Tuesday evening. Every dancer was there. It was a dancers' night, and everybody went there to practice. And basically, they would once a month have a show. They would have a demonstration of one of the top professionals. Whenever we got the opportunity to see a professional do a demonstration, we were there. It was like, you know, and those people that were the leading exponents of that time, they were our inspiration. Yeah. Is you know, we would go to the theatre, we would be inspired by some musical that we had seen. So I think you've got to try to find things which you can bring home and discuss and say, well, you know,
but also
we do this.
The difference is in our days, when we used to dance in the competition with, as I said, with Rudy Trouts and Hope Bits, all of them, whether we all made the final or whether we didn't, we all stayed and watched the final right to the end. Today, if they get knocked out in the third round or second round, you see them walking around with their trolley and going out the door, going home, instead of watching the couples today and seeing, well, why have they got in and we didn't get in? Today, everything is completely gone the other way around. Like photography, the photography is better today. I mean, we never really had brilliant photography. We didn't have videos, we didn't have YouTubes. So it was, you know, by watching all the time with our own eyes, you know, what we saw. You know, I looked at other couples and I think, well, now he's doing that, not necessarily better than me, but why is he getting in and I'm not on that particular point? And we learned from that. Now today, they don't want to learn from any other couple. They just want to, oh, well, I'm good enough, I'm the best, and I've gone home. And that's what I think is wrong today. You know, they all, I mean, there's great dancers today, don't get me wrong. But unfortunately, their thinking is a little bit different. You know, it's a lot more also money orientated. Right. You know, well, how much are we going to get for the competition, and who's judging? And we never even thought about that. Who's judging and how much we get? We just dance because we enjoy dancing.
We certainly never did competitions because of the prize money. That was for sure. I
mean, it wasn't big money anyway. I mean, you know, but yes, today their values are different. You know, they've got to have the best dress. Of course they have. But they go for expensive dresses and it might not even suit them. You know, they got sponsors, some of them, and shoes. And, you know, we just did what we had to do to just dance.
Yeah, so it sounds like you really had the true passion. And I'm sure people today, they have that passion, I'm sure. And especially this moment, that the couples who stayed and survived and still going to come out, they definitely proven the love to dance.
That's correct.
And I hope that this time, as you said before, patience. Now, I hope that this time is teaching a lot of us that patience, because we can't do without patience. We have to be patient, wait to come out on that floor. And I hope that people listen to you and learn and go now even in the kitchen and try to discover themselves and do something. So going on to the next question, I'm asking this to everyone because that's the name of the series, Then and Now. So if you were to create a new decade, let's say 3000, your perfect decade, and you would be allowed to choose 2 or 3 things from when you dance and 2 or 3 things from now. So what would those things be? You don't have to say names, just the...
No, it doesn't matter. Well, for a start, you don't need as many teachers as the couples are going to today, because you can go into 6 restaurants and have 6 spaghettis, you know, and you will come out, the taste will be different in every restaurant. It doesn't mean that one restaurant is better spaghetti than the other one, but it's not the same. So if that was me, I would cut down on certain teachers and go to teachers that will give you, say, bring out what you're good out of. That's very important for me. The teacher's got to bring what's good in the couple, not what the couple goes to that teacher because he's judging this or he's judging that. That's very important for me.
I think one of the things would be the fact that, yeah, I would like to see the quality of the partnership, the partnering in the partnership better. I would love to go back to those days where the man actually danced with the lady and the priority was there, the lady followed. I would like to see not so much aggressiveness. I don't want to see aggressiveness in the dance, not in any of the dances. And I think the passion and the speed and the impact and the dynamics can all be there, but they don't have to be aggressive. So aggressiveness would be something I would not want to see out of which I think is there today, and replace that with a little bit more better partnering, so that it was a pleasure to dance with a man rather than sometimes I do think that I look at some girls and the boys are not taking any notice of them, and I think, you poor girl, you're never going to know what it's like to actually have a nice dance with a man and enjoy dancing with them. And you know, there are obviously men around that still give you that pleasure, but you can count them on one hand at the end of the day. And the music, I think also I would like to see couples choosing music to dance to that was a little bit more readable. You know, I think most of the demonstrators, ballroom and Latin, they go for this strange music now. They put a show together and they try to find some piece of music which is I don't know, different. Yeah, yes. Different. But you can't beat a piece of music that's got a nice melody in it. So I would think, you know, yeah, choice of music as well. I don't know if there's anything else.
No, you said it.
Yes, well, it does truly sound like a perfect couple. and because actually, strangely, Anthony mentioned quite a few similar things, and the dancing with the girl, feeling the sensitivity and the enjoyment of actually dancing and feeling together. So definitely it's exactly the same in ballroom, and so
yes, it's the same.
No, absolutely.
No, that's right.
You know, I remember judging for Philip Wiley in a competition in Southall on a Sunday, and I was standing next to Doreen Freeman. She was on the same panel. We were judging together, and a dancer called Philip Bunyan came round in the slow foxtrot, and he came past Doreen and I, and he got a little bit caught up in the corner, and he just changed the direction, swooped his girl around, and off they went, off into the center of the floor in a feather. And Doreen looked at me and she said to me, "That's what it's all about." And it was exactly because both of us had seen it, and we both thought, oh, how wonderful, you know. And yeah, Doreen said that's what it's all about.
Yes, that's beautiful.
So true.
So I'm just going to let Michael and Vicky in and say hello. So hello, Michael and Vicky. We'll let you in. There they are.
You've been practicing or what?
They're practicing, yes. They will need
yeah.
Oh, there we are. Wait a minute.
No, we've got no picture.
You need to press the video.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I got it now.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Right, Michael?
Okay, we lost our head now, actually. 1 minute.
How's that?
How you doing?
Evening, everybody. How you doing?
Fine, yeah, good. Good.
Have you had fun?
Yeah, very good. We enjoy it.
Lovely.
You always have fun.
Yeah, you always set a good atmosphere. I like following you. I followed you at Blackpool. Vicky said, atmosphere in the room is so good. She said,
yes, and Michael behaved today. I was expecting you to be a little bit more uncontrollable, but you're very good boy today.
Serious today. Well, before
we've been on good behaviour.
I know, but before we go off, and Michael goes on, Zigwadi, we'd like to thank you very much for inviting us to do this for you. It's been great. And I think more people should be doing this to give people inspiration, because everybody's got different ideas and different inspiration. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Michael&Lorna. Thank you very much. And
Have a good one, Mike.
Thank you.
Vicky, enjoy it.
Take
Bye.
See
care.
you next week. Next week.
Next week.
Bye. So, hello, Michael and Vicky.
Hello.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for
Good
joining
evening.
us. And there are a lot of people watching you live and a lot of people saying hello.
Wow, that's nice.
Simona, Adele, Domen and Caroline Davy, and there are a lot of people saying hello, but later on you can just go back on that page and say hello back to everyone. It's difficult for me to say hello to everyone and talk to you, so I will try my very best. So you danced in your 80s, so your main age decade is 80s, and as Anthony, actually, you'll be very happy. Well, you heard probably Anthony, and he said 80s and 90s, that was his golden decade.
He's very, very kind. May I start by just saying you've caught us at cocktail hour. So first of all, I would like to wish everybody who's looking in, I assume there's a few of you there, I'd like to wish you a happy new year, and let's hope that this year is going to be very much better than the year we've just got through. So health and happiness to everybody, most importantly, and to you, SnieguoleWood.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers. Cool, that's much better. That's what I needed.
Whatever you're drinking looks very nice. So why do you think, well, obviously Anthony had to throw a little joke in there because he believed it was good because he was the teacher, then he was retired and he was teaching everyone, but actually he did say that it was his favorite decade. So why do you think that was like this? Why do you think they were the golden decades?
Well, that's very kind of Anthony. I don't know. What I think, looking back, because I can actually remember back to the 60s, of course, and I think in each era you get great dancing, not so great dancing, and bad dancing. Right. Somehow what the mind does, it tends to work like a telescope, and if you're not careful, you put all the best dancing you've seen in one era, and it really didn't happen like that. In each era you've got a spread. What I would say about the current era is we've got more talent at the bottom of the triangle, if you like, around the world than we've ever had before. But to pick a particular era is difficult, because I think we all look back at the era before us. When I grew up, I was mesmerised by Peter Eggleton and Brenda Winslade, by Bill and Bobby Irving, and Anthony and Faye. They were my idols. And watching these people dance. So to me, I look back and think, well, that was a kind of a golden era.
But then for them to admit that it was your era is golden, it's quite.
I will just say one thing though. If you look back to the very early days, I think all the emphasis was on beautiful footwork. I watched a couple of little videos today, actually, that somebody kindly put on there, and you see the beautiful leg lines intertwined. There's wonderful harmony, but by today's standard, we would say there's not much presentation from the upper body. Well, through the following years, I think couples have learned to try to dance the whole of the body. That's not a bad thing, and I think that started to get a little bit better in perhaps our era in the 80s. Then through to the 90s, I saw it get better. Do you not think? You know, if you look at these people, they understood posture a bit better than we did. Then, unfortunately, the desire to make it bigger and bigger, in my view, has gone off track, and now we're in a little bit of trouble. So I've got a few areas for concern that we could talk about later.
Yes, I would like, I'm sure everybody would like to hear all of that, definitely. So if there's anything you want to say, just fire away, Michael.
May I just read to you, if I may? I wrote an article in November of 2008, because I'd been to the international championship. We'd been to the international championships, and I came away with a sense of disappointment. And I was asking myself the question, why am I disappointed? I'll just read a couple of paragraphs, not the whole thing.
Okay.
And I said, it was in the amateur ballroom section that I felt most let down, and to a slighter, lesser degree in the professional ballroom section. So why? Today's dancers are fitter, stronger, better prepared than ever before. And they are also dexterous, agile, clever. So what is lacking? I'm asking myself the question, this is 2008. Musicality, harmony, sensitivity, artistry, beauty. So in a way, I think the priorities shift, and no era gets all the priorities right at any one time. But I think when I've reflected there in 2008, I think I would probably say that today. So I also went on to say, dancers are physically very able, but it seems this physical prowess is only used to create one thing, speed.
Yeah.
In golfing terms, you play golf, Snig. So in golfing terms, we would say they grip it and rip it. Not true of everybody, there's great dancing in every era, but you could see that even in 2008, I'm becoming a little concerned about the development of speed, power, and I don't mention, actually I do go on to mention posture, but we'll talk about that later.
You know what I think? I think it's because people scared maybe not to look too slow or too old-fashioned or whatever. And I will bring this one just memory now just came in. My very first lesson with you and Vicky. And I remember we started with Vicky and we had waltz, which we only did 2 steps, preparation step and number 1 of the natural turn for all 45 minutes. We couldn't move any.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, but
You should ask for your money back.
the most amazing lesson. And then we went on to Michael and we decided to tango. And I think, you know, when you there was this point I remember, he relaxed me to this state of body state that I thought there is no way I'm going to able to move anything. I'm just going to fall on the floor in a minute. I felt like I'm just going to, and I thought, how is that going to work? So my teenage brain were fighting. And then all of a sudden, Michael did his link and I was like, oh, what happened? What happened? Where does the speed came from? And the speed you created, it was phenomenal. And you changed my thinking for the rest of my life.
Good. Oh, good. Well, I think what we know is that tight muscles, stiff, you can't move quickly. You've got to be relaxed. And if I come back to golf just for a moment, there was a major championship and Nick Faldo, one of our greatest ever golfer, he's doing the commentary. And the other chap asks Sir Nick, he says to him, can this particular chap win today? He's coming down the last few holes. So Sir Nick thinks about it. He says, well, yeah, I think he can if he relaxes his shoulders. Could be a dance lesson.
So, but then going back a little bit, so for example, obviously you was a child, you was a young junior and whatever. So was you always taught from the very beginning in this relax and this sort of sensitive, or were you stiff at some point? Please tell you went.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, stiff. Well, stiff as a board, I think. No, I think when we were very young, I would just like to mention I had wonderful teachers, a couple called Sydney and Dorothy Winter, who took me from age 9 to junior champion at 16. They trained me. And no, it wasn't about things like that. It was all about closing your feet on 3 and you know, staying on time and giving a slow its full value.
And a lot about feel.
A lot about feel.
That was probably a lot. If you danced with somebody, it had to feel.
So what made you change? So what made you change? At what point of your age you just to realize
I'll tell
that?
you why. Pain.
Oh,
Pain.
I never liked pain. Hated it. So I know everybody says the music was longer years ago at Blackpool, but it really was, wasn't it?
It was.
And you did 6 rounds, you don't get any buys. I couldn't survive unless I changed the way I danced. I found it frightening when I was a young amateur, starting to go from the 24 to the 12. It was physically daunting. So I thought to myself, this is not possible. I can't. I've got to find another way of doing this. And the first dance that I looked at, of course, was tango, because tango used to kill me, as it does many people.
Yeah, yeah. Must be efficient.
But in
So it was need. It was need. It made me. I got to change the way I do this.
Yes, but it's funny because Anthony also mentioned that all his life he never trained extra from dancing. He only developed through dancing. These days competitors, of course, they go to gym, they train, they physically very strong. So even they stiff, they still manage to survive these 6 rounds. I think in their mind they're thinking perhaps it's nothing wrong, I'm doing it.
Yeah, this is the problem. This is a problem. I mean, I applaud them being physically fit. Yes, I used to do a bit of physical training. We did a bit. But so I would applaud them to look after their diet, to look after their well-being. I wouldn't train on martinis. And to look after yourself and be fit and strong. But that doesn't mean you need to dance in a physical way.
And the body must still be, you must still have core strength and tone. So even though it's got to be flexible, and rather than sloppy relaxed, it mustn't be that, because that's not going to do any good. But it has to be, you have to be flexible in order to be able to move freely, and certainly to get speed in tango.
Yeah.
If it's stiff, the weight is held too high and you can't use your own weight. It's terribly important.
Yes, for sure. So what would you say to these days dancers? I mean, little advice, how to persuade them that the physicality, that this stiffness is really not the key. How to persuade that those 5 factors that you've written on 2008, musicality, sensitivity, feeling, Anthony mentioned, Lorna and Michael mentioned exactly same things. How to bring them back? Please give us golden magical rule.
Well, first of all, in ballroom dancing, the big no-no at the moment, if you give me 100 couples, 93 of them are standing in a terrible position. I keep saying there is great dancing at the moment, but if I see the man with his chest up, head pulled back, arms too far back, and then the lady off at this ridiculous angle whereby her left ear is actually pointing at the floor. This is not a position from which you can move easily.
And I think Scrivener said it really well in one of his articles, that the lady, her head position and body position, must not rob the man of his balance or cause him to use any extra muscular effort. And I think that is great. So to stay together and to move together through balance and timing, rather than just the physical force of holding it together. And of course, you need great technique for that. If the technique is not good enough, you have to resort to physical effort. And then it has to be held, because there's nothing else that's going to allow you to dance together and keep it together.
But you're right, it needs to, I won't capitulate with couples. I won't go with what they think is a fashion or something. I don't care. I can only teach and do what I believe in passionately. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time. So I won't capitulate at all. And however, it is my job also to persuade people. And it's not necessarily easy, as you've suggested, Well, I agree with you, that they have to experience it, first of all. So if you can soften somebody down, first of all, get them in a position from which it is possible to dance. So posture and hold has to change. Once they're lined up, then they have a possibility to use feet, because they're now in balance. Then they can use ankle joints, knee joints, hip joints. They've got the possibility to move powerfully.
The shape grows with that.
And the shape changes because of the power of movement.
Because of the dynamics of it.
I think that's the other thing that is difficult to explain to people. They think that I can't have a big shape. Yeah, but if your arms are back behind you, this is a small shape. You're putting the lady onto you, and she's in an impossible position. Big shapes come from big movement. And to try and explain that so it's swing, sway, turn, rise and fall, all these elements that create the big picture, which comes with big movement. So it's not a short story, it's a longer story.
And not rough move.
Not rough move. That's what I remember. You mentioned Anthony, and I'll mention Peter or Brenda. When I dance with these people, the roll through the feet, fabulous. The smoothness, what we're aiming for, the God in ballroom dancing is quality of motion and its connection to the music. If the quality of motion and the roll through the feet if you dance with someone like Anthony or Peter, you couldn't feel the weight change. This is what we're aiming for. And for me, that is quintessentially great dancing.
Yes. And then also Lorna and Michael and Lorna mentioned that obviously patience is a very big key. You have more patience than to train. So let's say even at that moment when you realize you have to change your tango because otherwise you're not going to survive your competition. So you had to put some patience, because I'm sure that didn't happen over the night. How long did you have to practice to get rid of that tension and to trust it going to work?
This is another problem, of course, because we cannot separate our dance world from the world we're living in. So the world we're living in now is an instant world. It's brash, it's showy offy, it's all the things that years ago would have been considered vulgar. Not anymore. To go out there and say how good you are and all that stuff and sell. That's the world we're living in. So dancing to a degree, unfortunately, will follow that bombastic style because that's the kind of the world we're living in. So to go right back, Phyllis Hayler told me that when the lady danced, so we're talking now the 30s and 40s, she said it was considered vulgar for the lady to look up and out.
Yeah, she had to look down.
Had to have her eyes down. I'm not suggesting we go back to that, but you can see how the dance style must follow the culture.
Yes.
In which we're living.
It's inevitable.
Inevitable.
But actually, I think you're right with the instant, because if you think even when I was in juniors or youth, we didn't have the phones, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have all of that. So we were just practicing, and I'm sure you exactly the same. You would practice and you wouldn't see anyone. You wouldn't be able to compare yourself every single day or get upset or get, sort of nervous that they are doing better. And you just wait until competition, do what you had to do, come out, and that's it.
Well, I'll tell you where we were very lucky. Tuesday night.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I was going to say we were very lucky in our practice sessions because we had very big ballrooms to practice in, and Hammersmith Palais being one of them. And at Hammersmith Palais, you could see Tuesday nights and Saturdays. Tuesday nights, you had a live orchestra that we danced to practice, and social dancing was there at the same time. So people were social dancing and people were practicing competitions. Everybody mingled together. It was a huge place. And you could also see every Tuesday a demonstration. One of the top professionals would do a demonstration. So we were exposed to seeing really good dancing once a week. And then the first Tuesday of every month, if you ran round the corner very quickly, and if we had enough money, we could go around to Phyllis Hayler's studio and get another demonstration. So that once a month you could see two demonstrations
on one night,
which was great. But also the practicing in the huge ballroom with lots of other people, and you couldn't hit them, of course. You mustn't hit them. You've got to manoeuvre your way around, which of course was very good for floor craft. But the whole atmosphere of it, I think, was great. So we were exposed to seeing. That was the point, really. We were exposed to seeing top class professional dancers on a weekly basis.
But you're quite right, though, Snieguole, that with today's technology, if the couples want to, okay, it's not the same as seeing dancing live, of course, but they're able to look back into the history and see that and learn a little bit from each generation. I don't like that, or I like this. Studying that. There's a lot of information now around the world, perhaps too much.
Yes, that's where I wonder, whether, because you were so looking forward to those, and actually Michael and Lorna and Anthony mentioned that famous practice place, and yes, so you all clearly in these decades you were doing the same, and everybody went to practice there. But so of course you were so lucky to see all these great dancers, but you still were not sort of affected by, the nervous energy of every day seeing videos and seeing what people doing and you're not doing. And then you say, oh, maybe I should be doing that and they doing that. I think you sort of stuck to your own way, how you wanted to do it. And maybe that's why created you stronger characters and those strong personalities on the floor.
I would say in my own case, I wouldn't say I copied anybody, but I had favourite people that I liked to watch. And as I say, when we were growing up, it was
champions of
Bill,
the day, really.
Peter, and Anthony, particularly those three.
They
So
were
I
the
remember
champions of the day.
Thursday night we'd dance the amateur championship. Whatever happened, happened. And then I think we've done all pretty well. Then I'd sit down Friday night and watch those guys go around, the couples go around the floor, and I'd think, yeah, we're little sort of sports cars, maybe. These are Grand Prix cars. This is a different ball game. And I looked to those people and I tried to emulate, not copy, but emulate what they did. And I tried to understand how they did it, how they were able to move so much, make it look so easy.
Make it look easy.
And then the other thing I was always affected by from a very young age, I thought it was so glamorous. I just fell in love with the glamour of it. I'm going back to when I was very young.
Right.
But the first international, I went to it in the afternoon. All the pros, of course, everybody's dancing in lounge clothes. So I looked down at the ball and I see this elegant man in a grey suit with this lady in black velvet dress with a hat on and long gloves. This is Peter and Brenda.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that is so cool. To use today's vernacular, I thought that is so cool. And then there was another couple. There was a stunning looking lady called Christine Norton, who danced with Stan Dudley. And I remember he was all dressed in a brown suit with brown suede shoes. And I thought, wow, this is so elegant.
Yeah.
So that elegance, that affected me very much.
And I was really affected by feet. And we've gone off subject a little bit, but I must say, before I did competitive dancing, there used to be a program on the television called the Victor Sylvester Dance Club. And Victor Sylvester would have a lady, a partner, to teach a step. Each week he taught a step. And the girls that he used most were Christine Norton, Doreen Freeman, Brenda Winsley. And he'd show, so that the spotlight would go in on the feet because he was teaching a step. And the feet were so gorgeous. I was absolutely fascinated by the way they used their feet. And a lot of them had rhinestones. The shoes were sparkly and shiny. And as a little kid, you're really affected by that sort of glamour, aren't you?
True.
So that affected me. I never lost my fascination with feet and beautiful footwork because of that, I think.
That kind of nearly answered my question. My next question was about your feet, because I remember your beautiful feet all the time. I mean, they were beautiful. And I just wanted to ask, how did you make them so beautiful?
Kind. That's very kind. Well, I got copied, I guess. And that's down to really, in a way, the teacher you're teaching. The first teacher that I had, a terrific teacher, and detail really, and not letting you get away with anything, and making sure you did close your feet, and you did do the correct thing, you didn't do the wrong footwork, and doing it in a class where each individual member had to get up and do it in the class, so you didn't want to make a mistake in front of everybody else. So you really concentrated and you got the technique right. The technique just of heels and toes in this case.
So would you say you practiced a lot alone to perfect that feat?
Well, yeah, we danced alone in the classes as children. We danced always, yes, yeah. You followed the teachers showed you that step for that week, and then you copied that, and then you did it individually. So we didn't really have a routine as such. You see, maybe you learned a spin turn one week, or then you learn a double reverse spin, or so you actually learned the little parts of each dance that make up the whole, which is
I think Vicky goes on to a very, very important point. That's how we grew up, no routines. So we learned the individual figures, and from quite a young age, you just knew how they fitted together, like a jigsaw puzzle. It wasn't sort of ever so clever, you had a natural turn, change step, reverse turn, another change step, another natural turn. And then it got built up from there through each dance. So we never had a routine until we turned pro and had to put a demonstration together. Prior to that, we had variations which we fitted together, depending on the circumstances, and put basic steps between them. That didn't seem very clever. It was just the way we grew up. But I think it's terribly important when I look back on it, because inevitably you can only do that if you can lead your partner. Now, you can only lead your partner if you make the correct actions, if you go up and down in the right place, if you turn in the right place, if you all these elements cause, or if you change the timing, that will lead her into something different. Check your body weight, so on. So you're kind of learning these things, not directly,
subconsciously, really.
Yeah, because you don't want to push and pull her around with your arms.
Also, that's very important for when you've become a seasoned competitor and you're doing your routine of steps, that if something goes wrong, and it's supposing you're doing something and you're not bringing off a double reverse spin or an overspin, it'd probably be these days, if you've understood from the beginning how that figure was developed from a double reverse spin, then how you change the rise and fall of the timings to make it into an overspin, then you can correct it in that part of your routine. Now that may well occur 2 bars down the line, the other side of the room, if you like. Now, if you've not recognized that that's the same step, you can't correct it. So if you learn it correctly in one place, you'll do it correctly wherever it happens to occur. So it makes improvement much quicker.
But it seems it's a trend because, you know, Anthony said exactly the same, and Michael and Lorna before you said exactly the same. They didn't have routines, and I think that's why it was so beautiful partnerships always. It was true lead and follow partnerships rather than just 2 individuals dancing attached together. And
you see, I think in a way what the choreographers have learned to do is to get not very good dancers round the floor. So they put together a sequence of steps which are easy to do, avoiding difficult things. For example, if you dance in waltz, you dance a natural spin turn, 4, 5, 6 for reverse, low, with your feet closing beautifully, lower into the reverse figure, quite difficult. Running spin turn, side cross, much easier. Not necessarily a bad figure, of course not. Used it myself, but that's the way it's gone. So avoid the thing that's difficult, coming together, close your feet, lower beautifully, and move off into a fall away reverse, for example. Difficult to do.
Deceleration in a quick step into.
Oh, there's a classic. Quick and quick. Got a lower, decelerate, swing the body through half an inch. No. Step hop. Easier to do. So in a way, I think around the world, choreographers have found easier ways to get people round the floor. In the short term, that may seem okay, but of course, if you take that to its end result, the couples never learn the skills. But it's the instant society again, I think.
Yes, but you know, also just going a little bit back to your feet, Vic, obviously you said from the very young age they were teaching you good feet, and actually if we look at juveniles right now, they also have nice feet. They are taught really beautifully. Yes. But then something happens as they turn juniors and youth. They somehow lose that somewhere along the line. But you never did lose it. So how did you not lose it?
I think it's almost that when you come out of junior or juveniles or whatever, it's almost as if they want to throw that out of the window. That's not important anymore. Let's dance tricky figures without seeing the development of how the basic goes into a more advanced figure.
What frightens you? You go from a restricted syllabus
to open,
and then it's more difficult than I would dance the next week. Well, that's going to be a disaster.
So it should
skill,
be, isn't it?
Should be built up slowly. How the figure develops, not suddenly throw all that away.
Add an extra turn or an extra chasse or something onto what they already know.
Put a pivot in front of the or whatever. Gradually, so they don't lose the skills.
You see the relationship to the basic figure that they've learned. So then they recognise that is my basic figure. That's going back to what I said earlier, really, of learning the fundamentals, learning the basic figures first, and recognising those basic figures so that you do them correctly wherever they occur. But if you've only got a routine, you don't know a natural turn or a reverse turn or a feather finish into a 3-step. You only know it's a series of steps, thousands of steps that go around the room, and therefore you can't identify. So you're likely to lose track of what you learned at a very young age. Suddenly it's not connected anymore. There's a disconnection.
Don't imagine all the footwork's bad today. Of course,
it's not. Absolutely not.
Nor was it. I mean, I can give you some lovely examples of footwork. Andrew's feet, marvelous feet. Luca's feet, Lorraine's feet, marvelous feet. So don't imagine that. I come back to what. No, they're not the younger generation. To me, they are. Everything's comparative. But, so come back to what I said earlier. In every generation,
yes,
the good, the bad, and the ugly, I suppose.
Yes. But so
And the elegance of it as well. You see, it's got to look beautiful. They do a fundamental job because they support you, they move you, but also for their own sake, they've got to. I like them to look nice. I like them to be expressive. Every part of the foot that's been used, and that all adds to the elegance. So that the whole line, people tend to think of the line as this part here, but for me, the line starts down at the foot and goes up to the top of the head. That's all part of the line. Some might be static lines, posed lines. Some might be lines in movement, but they're all lines. They're all from tip of the toe to the top of the head, in my opinion. So I think that's what's the elegance of it. That's what I think.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I know time is kind of a little bit running over, but I just have two more questions I need to ask. I really want to know.
I'm not going anywhere.
worry.
I haven't got anywhere to go.
I got the dinner tab.
There's only dinner later.
No, it's just I obviously watched some videos of you, and I see you dancing, teaching, and had lessons. And I always remember you having very, very clear character in each dance. I know when you dance waltz, I don't need music. I know you dancing waltz and your tango and your foxtrot. They are just tremendously characteristic. How did you keep those characteristics?
Well, that's a marvelous subject, because another little note I just jotted down here about my complaints: hold, posture, construction.
Correct.
Very often the construction is poor. I think what happens, for example, if every bar of music in waltz has 5 steps in it, it can never waltz. You can do 5 steps in a bar, of course you can, but if you do that repeatedly, there's no waltz left. So the construction is very important. And I think what happens possibly is couples go somewhere, they learn, let's say, 8 bars. Lovely, that's okay. Maybe go somewhere else, another 8 bars, another 8. Now, individually, each 8 bars or 4 bars or whatever it is might be quite okay.
Yeah.
All put together, no, this is not okay. It's not a balanced dance anymore. So the balance of choreography, I think, is terribly important in order to be able to characterize the dance. If we're talking specifically about tango, which is the odd man out, or the completely different animal, then you'll never do a proper tango, in my opinion, if the hold is as bad as you nearly never see a proper tango hold.
If you don't see any walks.
You can't do a proper walk action unless the weight's in the right place, and the whole character of the dance is based, in my opinion, on the walk action. So I see a lot of highly motivated, dexterous tangos, but are they really tango? Don't really quite capture the stealth and the stillness and the character of a tango. Then explode, then by all means explode, but always with the weight in the right place in relation to the feet and legs, which makes that characterization possible. But you can't do that if you put your partner on like that, and then your arms kill you at the end of it. You got cramp in both arms. No good.
Oh, we saw that once, didn't we? That little boy in Blackpool.
Yeah, judging I won't tell you who it was. He ain't quite a well-known professional.
Yeah. Oh, it was
watching. I was judging actually the junior at Blackpool, one year junior Blackpool. So end of tango, this little boy, his arm's there. He goes like, he gets there. Oh, he pushes his arm down like that. And he looked around the room and he stood there rubbing his arm.
Nobody's watching. He got
so he looked at me. I thought, yeah, I know how that feels. Yeah. He must have thought, well, no one will know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, oh yes, I did. So yeah, the choreography must be balanced, and it must, And also the other thing that drives me mad, my dear friend Len Goodman said to me one day, he said to me, why is it every basic step has to have knobs on it? Why does it all have knobs on it? So, in other words, what he's saying in his inimitable way is, why do they interfere with every basic step? Can the basic step not ever be danced in its original form? And of course, every generation is looking to develop and looking for more and more and more. That's good. But I think you always need to ask yourself the question, if I'm interfering with a basic step, is what I'm doing better than the original? If it's not, don't do it. And let's see some basic steps danced in their pure form. Because what our predecessors, what our predecessors handed down to us was so fabulous. To lose it would be, disaster.
So all I was going to say was that I think the choreography it should be as a relief and an enhancement to the basic figures. It shouldn't replace the basic figures.
Yeah.
So there should be the recognizable structure of the dance and then the flurry of choreography. If it all becomes choreography, and you lose the character of the dance. So I think that's very important.
Very important.
I hope those youngsters are listening and writing down.
I don't know whether there's anybody out there. Is there? Probably not. They've all switched off by now.
No, and because this series called Then and Now, and every guest gets the same question. So if you were to create a new decade, let's say 2050, a new decade, and you were allowed to pick up 3 items, 3 things from your decade or the 90s that you liked, and 3 things from today, and form a new decade. So which things would you pick from the dance? No names, just the
Easy. From today's dancing, their performance value, their fitness, and their preparedness and confidence. From the earlier era, I would say their elegance, the harmony, the musicality, the ability to bring you in, not by going like so, but bringing you in because of the way they dance together. That involved you, even if you're in the back row of the balcony, you don't have to be, it brings you in when you watch couples and the backs going across the floor, that brings you in. So if you could put that together with today's joie de vivre and power, I think that, and it is possible, and some of course do attempt to do that. So the future is very bright, but I just become concerned when I watch 100 couples that so many, I think, are taking the wrong route, and all this, and what a tragedy if this talent, because there's so much talent around, what a tragedy if that is misdirected into a vulgar kind of dash around the floor.
That's right. Not everything.
I don't think that will happen. I'm generally an optimist, and if you look back over the decades, various things have come and gone, and generally the bad things go after
eventually.
Eventually. And then hopefully we go on and look forward to more exciting times.
Well, that's a beautiful way to finish, I think. That was very positive note.